Welcome to the Breakfast Leadership Show, where we interview global thought leaders on business, leadership, and life. Here's your host, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and chief burnout officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network, Michael Levitt.
Welcome back. I've got Jim Fielding online. Jim, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Looking forward to this conversation. You've done some absolutely amazing work so far, and you continue to do so. It's not like, okay, I'm done. So
Yeah.
why don't you share a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into the conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I'm committed to lifelong learning and staying constantly curious. And so I don't ever want to be done. And after a great run in retail and media and entertainment with some of the world's largest brands like The Gap and Disney and DreamWorks and 20th Century Fox, I've completely pivoted particularly in the last 2 years. I wrote a book that came out in August of 2023, All Pride, No Ego, and that really gave me the platform to pursue this new life I'm in now. And so officially, as of really January 1st this year, but really last fall, I'm full-time writer, speaker, and now executive coach. I went back to school at Emory, the Goethe Business School, and took two coaching fundamentals and advanced coaching, and now have coaching clients and consulting clients, and I'm writing another book and doing speaking opportunities at conferences and corporations and nonprofit groups. So it's the first time in my life. I remember talking to my sister and my mom about this. Like I basically have had a paycheck from someone else since I was 13. My parents believed that we needed to go to work and that my allowance was never going to keep up with my lifestyle. And literally last August 31st was the last time I got a quote paycheck from a corporation and benefits and all that. And so it's really the first time in my life, now that I'm 59, getting ready to turn 60, where I'm completely on my own and I'm really enjoying it and meeting fascinating people and doing interesting things.
So you're bold to do it, and I commend you for doing it because there's something energetic and refreshing about it. It's like you're going out there and you don't necessarily have a safety net. You do, but you don't. It's like, okay, for me to generate revenue, so I have some currency units in my bank account, it's up to me. It was before too, but it's a little different now where you're basically working multiple departments instead of just the sales and consulting side of things or whatever else. And I'm guessing, and you mentioned about going back to school and and the coaching and whatnot. My hunch, and correct me if I'm wrong, is when you're in the class and they're going over some things, did you have that aha moment going, wait, I've been doing this all along anyway, but now I'm getting the education component afterwards. So usually it's like, usually you learn how to do it, then you do it. Well, in your career, you did it, and now you're
I kind of learned on the job.
You're learning how to do it. Yeah.
I give my professors and mentors in that program credit because like literally the first module when I started was part of it was the difference between coaching, consulting, therapy, and mentoring. And I realized that I'd been doing all of that. Like I had gone to therapy. I wasn't a therapist, but I had mentored, I had consulted, and I had coached. But they were really good about putting the boundary walls in between what a good coach was versus a good consultant. And so for me, that honestly was the hardest learning because as a consultant, you're paid to solve a problem. I mean, you're literally hired for a project or to solve an issue a company has and 90 days, 6 months, whatever it is, and you have a deliverable. In coaching, it's much more client driven and it's much more iterative and it kind of takes a lot of different paths. And I had to learn not to be a problem solver because in my first couple practice coaching, and we practiced all the time in the class, I would be like offering solutions immediately because that's how I was programmed. And my coach would be like, no, right? Like my professor would be like, help your client get to the solutions, help your client transform, help your client unblock. And I love that. And it's actually made me, I think, frankly, a better partner and son and brother and uncle because I'm not just running around solving. And listen, I was in the C-suite and I was a consultant. That's what I was paid for. To your point, I was paid to solve problems. I was paid to drive business, and so I was like making decisions on the fly and going. And in coaching, it's a much different process. It's a much different timeline. And I have a very diverse set of clients, which I love. And so each coaching assignment is very different. Each client is different in what they want to accomplish in the assignment. So, but yes, I would have said a year ago, I've been coaching forever until I got the academic foundation. It was like, oh, I need to learn some new things. And it was really important to me because, to your point, I could have just gone on LinkedIn and announced I was a coach and started booking people and put up my website. I wanted to do the academic underpinning first.
Well, it speaks volumes to your character too, because most people say, "Yeah, I got this. I've been doing this. I worked at this consulting firm or whomever, forever. I know what I'm doing." And
right.
And you would serve your clients well by doing that. But the analogy a lot of times, for me, when I think about consulting an organization or coaching, the big thing for me to help remind myself of the same situation is, okay, what did they hire me to do? Okay, they hired me to coach them. All right, well, that means I'm on the sidelines. I'm going over some plays. I'm like, okay, what do you think about this? Very collaborative. Right. Get them, like you said, to come up with their solutions instead of, what do you think about this? And, being, a reformed people pleaser and a problem solver. Great book by the late Dr. Harriet Breaker, Disease to Please. I highly recommend it.
That is brilliant. I love the title.
Yeah.
I'm writing that down. I'm looking at you, but I'm writing that down.
Yeah, it is. That book came out, I think, in the year 2000. So it's a quarter century old, but it's timeless and quite convicting if you are a people pleaser, because it calls you out really good. And there's different types of people pleasers, and I thought, well, I'm this. And then after reading that book and picking myself up off the floor after it knocked me down, I was like, oh wow, I'm actually different. And I reread it every few years, just as a not so much as a reminder, but more of a, where am I at now?
Because, almost like a self-assessment. I love that.
Yeah. So it's definitely a good book that I recommend to anybody and everybody.
Well, it takes a people pleaser to know a people pleaser, right? Like I definitely listen. I'm a firstborn. The first one in my family to go to 4-year college. Like I had a lot of expectations on me, and I was pleasing a lot. I was pleasing parents and grandparents and extended family. And you're right. So I had not heard of that book, so I love that you gave that to me, and I will pick up that pearl.
Yeah, I'll share a real quick family story. A late uncle of mine was in our family the first family member to go to college, and he made some questionable choices and did some crazy things in his life, to the point where when my brother and I, because we were next to go, and we saw some of the antics he pulled, I told my parents, I said, I'm kind of afraid to go to college. Why? Is it going to be hard? I said, no, because I don't want to do the crazy stuff that Uncle Joe has done. And they said, don't worry. I said, that has nothing to do with academic. So it was like, okay, good.
Exactly. No,
doesn't mean I haven't done some crazy things, but hey, it happens.
Yeah, right. No, for sure.
So, jumping back into, the work that you're doing now, and I know we talked about this before too, is, the tool bag of knowledge and experience that you have is interchangeable. So it's literally like going and I'll use the analogy, if you like to cook, okay, you got the spice rack, so you got all the spices, and you're like, okay, what am I going to make for dinner tonight? You've got some lean meat, you've got some veggies, salad, whatever. You're like, okay, what am I going to make? And as humans, we get in ruts and we say, okay, we're going to make this again. But no, sometimes we're like, no, actually, I want to do something different. And we may use a cookbook, or in this case, we may go, I'm going to rely on my
improvise.
Improv, and let's make dinner, knowing that DoorDash is just an app away. That's younger generations that didn't have, or older generations that didn't grow up with that. We remember. It's like if dinner was screwed up, then guess what? Well, we either ate it anyway,
Cereal. You might be having some cereal,
or
right?
some
Or some
cereal,
cereal.
or
Yeah.
maybe there's that 2-year-old jam package in the bottom drawer. Is there a piece of bread?
Yeah.
Oh,
Some
for some
buttered
reason
toast, some buttered
yeah, yeah,
toast.
exactly.
Yeah.
We're like
We're gonna
literally.
get we're gonna get something. But yeah.
Yeah, we're literally
Yeah.
thinking about going down
It's
the
a great,
street.
it's a great analogy. No, it's a
Yeah,
great story. I mean, that is, yeah. I mean, there's a certain amount, and that's part of what I like. What you and I are talking about, it's part of what I like about coaching is of course, I prepare for my client meetings, and I review previous notes, and I write myself some notes that I might want to ask, some certain questions I want to ask. I still have my list of go-to questions, but you know, you are kind of improvising during the coaching because you really, to be a good coach, you have to be a very active listener and a very good question asker. And you're really riffing off of what your client comes to, right? And as you know, because you do this, like my first questions are always, what's top of mind for you today? Or, what issue really is something you want to talk about today? Because as you know, each session, 45 or 50 minutes, you can't boil the ocean. And, I think getting the client to focus on what really is the core issue that's affecting them at that moment, right? And that they really want to talk about. And you can't prepare for that. It doesn't matter if you review all your notes and you think you know your client super well, they can surprise you each time. And to your point, I fall back my 35 plus years corporate experience and my own coaching. Like I was coached. I had a coach at Disney for 4 years when I was president of Disney Store. I had a coach. He was amazing. And I was the one when my boss at Disney told me I was getting a coach, I thought I had done something wrong, honestly, Michael. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like, did I offend somebody or my number's not good? Like I saw it as a negative. And my boss was like, no, 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 we're investing in you because we want you to be a better leader. We want you to grow with us. Once I flipped that switch and realized it was an investment, like it was an unbelievable time. And it was a gift that I had that coach in my life for 4 years. And it's somebody that I'm still in touch with because he helped me transform so much. And absolutely made me a better leader at Disney, a better leader at every future job I had after that. And as I've said before, like a better person, like I think just a better human being.
spent many an hour inside Disney stores with my little ones, and
So many
lot
did. We appreciate you.
yeah, lots of positive. One not so positive. My oldest daughter had the quintessential meltdown, laying on the floor, screaming, crying, kicking her legs to the point where I had to literally carry her out of the store over my shoulder because she was
Did we
upset.
not have something she wanted?
We already bought her something,
Oh,
and yeah, and she
oh,
wanted
I
something
get it.
else, and I told her no, and
No is not a
that
great word in Disney store
no,
now.
no, no. It's like, upon reflection, it was like next time it was funny because her mom was the reason why we were there, and we were there with a friend of ours because
Mm-hmm.
my partner at the time, she was holding, kind of like a house thing for selling something. I forget what it was,
Mm,
but so it's like, all right, well, I'll take Sarah out, and the other two kids
mm-hmm.
were little enough where they weren't, they were still very young, so it wasn't an
Yeah.
issue. But it's like, I'll take her. So it's like, all right, let's go to Disney store, and she never acted that way before ever, and so here I am walking with my buddy, and there's a screaming kid walking through the mall, screaming and yelling. I'm surprised people didn't call the cops, thinking I was
I'd
trying to
say
kidnap her.
turn you into child services.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like you're trying to kidnap that child. No, I'm just not buying her yet.
Okay, well,
She
here's the
she
hint.
she has enough aerials, okay?
Yes, but here's the hint. It's too late now. But for
Yeah.
any of your listeners, because I still love Disney Store so much, the area around the cash register are the souvenirs. We call them sous but internally, we literally called them, without being rude, shut up gifts. And they were all like less than $12. And it was, I saw numerous desperate parents and grandparents picking up like a small plush animal or, just something that like a keychain, something that was under 10 or $12 because we saw many a tantrum in Disney Store. because you're teaching the kids boundaries, right? And of course,
Hmm.
we're overstimulating them. Like our job was to give them the best 30 minutes of their day. And so we were like overstimulating them, and there's something everywhere that they look. So we weren't always a parent's best friend.
Well, I get that, but no, I was thinking as you were mentioning that, I remember, in the back of the stores, they always had a Disney movie playing on. It used to be on the smaller televisions,
Always,
and
yes.
then the bigger screens and stuff like that. And I often thought, it's like, it'd be nice if they had the funding and the staffing to say, this is kind of like a kid drop off at IKEA, where basically, and I'll use this pen, it's like this is the thing that pages you to let you know it's time to pick up your
Yes.
kid. I was one of those parents that probably ignored the page, and like I didn't feel anything.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna squeeze another
Something's
15
wrong.
minutes out of
Yeah.
this. Yeah. Meanwhile, the poor staff's like, it's like, I don't know, for some reason it wasn't working. Yeah. No, it was
It
working quite well.
definitely,
I was
you're
ignoring it.
quite smart, Michael.
Yeah.
We thought about it. And it's funny because on Disney Cruise Line, they have that. I mean, Disney
Yep.
Cruise Line, they have Kids Club,
Yep.
and you drop your kid off and you get a wristband, or now it's an app. But yeah, we thought about it. And by the way, we had parents do it without it being official either. Like all of a sudden we'd look up and we'd be like, whose children are those? Right. And
Yeah.
we'd be like trying to match the child, and all of a sudden the
Hmm.
mom would come back carrying like a Banana Republic bag or an Ann Taylor
Hmm.
bag. And we'd be like, oh, okay, now we're
Uh,
reuniting them. But we had,
exactly.
of course, you can imagine, we had not lost children or missing children protocols, but we had standards and operating procedures for
Oh yeah.
matching parents to children for sure.
Yeah. No, if it's ran by Disney, there's going to be protocols and
Uh, we
systems.
did not, we didn't miss it on that. We knew how to do that.
Exactly. So going forward, what I always ask people, and I don't ask the 5-year plan because the last 5 years, who the heck could have planned any
Who
of
could have
that?
planned those? Yeah.
But so now that you both feed in and you're working with people, what are some of the things that is there any like common, if anything, common things that businesses are looking for help on?
For
I know.
sure.
Okay, so I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, I'd say my three biggest topics, Michael. One is management and communication and team building in these new hybrid work environments, right? The return to work. Part of my staff is remote, part of my staff is hybrid, part of my staff is in the office. How do I do it? And for many of us in my generation, we grew up as physical leaders where basically our teams were in an office. Even if you managed multiple offices, you could still go to the office. And I'd say that's one area I'm spending a ton of time on. I think the other clients I'm attracting are people who are in a certain stage in their life. So I don't want to say a certain age, but more of a certain stage. What's next? How long am I going to keep doing this? Like, do I want to consult? Do I want to slow down? Do I want to maybe go teach? Like, these moments where, running companies, running a division, running corporation is not easy and is very tiring, and they're not ready to quote retire, but I mean, there's almost like most people don't like that word. Most people don't like retirement. They like changing gears or something like that. And then I'd say the other thing, it really is kind of belonging, inclusion, DEI 2.0. Like what do these programs look like? I mean, there's obviously been in the news lately that there's been a lot of rollbacks. President Trump announced that we're rolling it back at a federal level in the federal government. However, the reality is there's a business imperative to manage situationally and manage diversity because our teams, I mean, you look at the demographics in the United States in particular in 5 years, to your point, or 10 years, we're becoming a more diverse population. We're not becoming less diverse. And so, regardless of what is legally required or mandated or directed, most executives I'm working with see the business imperative to manage diversity and manage situationally. And also, I'm spending a lot of time on the generational differences. I hear a lot about, oh, Gen Z is so hard to manage, or Gen L, whatever's after Gen Z, or Gen Y, or, these millennials. And I'm like, okay, but that's again, managing diversity because each generation is different. And I guess the fourth one, if I had to throw one in, is the impact of AI. I mean, we're in an AI age, and where is it going to help your business? Is it going to hurt your business? How do you harness it for efficiency and effectiveness? How do you not be afraid of it in some cases? So I'd say those are pretty much the themes that I'm working.
Yeah, and definitely plenty of work in all of those arenas.
Yeah.
And, I saw the headline this morning. I forgot where it was, what article it was, or what resource it was from, but it touched on DEI and diversity. And to your point,
Hmm.
yeah, 5 to 10 years, our country will be more diverse, and even to the point where they said it because of the diversity, everybody thinks, okay, well, you've got people from this background or this
Hmm.
faith or
Hmm.
LGBTQ,
Q,
whatever.
right.
Yeah, so any of those things. But the thing that it hammered home, and I hadn't seen this, at least
Mm.
across to me as before, is in many of these situations, the new immigrants and new citizens to our country and all of that stuff are not coming from Western civilization.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So what that does, and this is my perspective, and why
Hmm.
I was such a big fan of the internet when it first showed up, and
Hmm.
why I'm a fan of AI and everything else, is the world is becoming more global, which means we can look and experience different skill sets, learn
Hmm.
new things, adapt things in a different way to
Mm.
see benefits that we wouldn't think of because we've been spending all of our time on Comfort Avenue doing the same
Hmm.
things over and over again, expecting a different
Yeah.
result. Remember the
Yeah.
insanity
Right.
game?
It's insanity. Yeah.
Yeah, so I am a huge advocate for new experiences, whether it's coming from
Hmm.
eating at a different restaurant to working with
Hmm.
different people. My last
Hmm.
role before going full in on this one was running a multiple site healthcare clinic. We had
Mm.
16 different nations represented in my clinic.
Yes. Yes.
The potluck lunch was off the
Oh,
charts
yeah. I was gonna
because
say
it's like I'm like, well,
I used to
what is
love the
this?
holiday celebrations. Yeah, I
Oh
loved
yeah,
that.
because it's like
Where
bring
everybody
me.
brought their version of cookies, right? And it
Yeah,
was like,
or it was like
oh
a
yeah,
different thing. I'm like, what's this? It's like you go in there and your senses are just going crazy. You're smelling all these combinations of foods, and
yeah.
you're like, crap. I said, I can eat maybe a plate, and there's like 10 plates worth of food here. It's
I
like so.
know, I
Yeah, we
know.
had, we had to retool it because there was so much leftover food. Thankfully, there was a place, a charity just down the street, so they were able to take all the food and they were fed
Yeah,
amazingly, and it was like so it worked out well. But all of these things
yeah.
opens things up, and for those companies that are looking at that going, I know 5 years down the road things may look a little different. It's perfect that they're doing that now instead
Oh,
of
for sure.
I'm a big proactive person. I'd rather be
Right,
proactive than reactive because
right.
you can plan it. Disaster recovery and emergency stuff, yeah, that's when you really start using your tools, but I'd rather not. I'd rather use the tools
Hmm.
in a planning way. So that's great to hear
And
that.
and and I love that you know all that, Michael, because the data and facts are there, right? And so again, regardless of what is legally mandated, it's a business imperative that you do this. And when I was president of Disney Store, I had one direct report. I had two direct reports in Europe, two in North America, one in Japan, and then three who we call global. They were based with me in LA, but they had global responsibility. And so by nature, all of their perspectives were completely different. And I loved back to cooking. I loved the stew that was because I've always been a two heads are better than one. And I think retail and Disney retail, I didn't ever claim to have all the answers. And I wanted, well, what do you think, Japan? What do you think from a European perspective? And we would try and we use the word global, that word. There were certain things about Disney Store that were global, that were like the standards and the expectations. But we also enabled local execution and local adaptation. So it made sense for the Japanese guest or the Italian guest or the German guest or the Mexican guest. And I loved that about our team, that we literally embraced the word local. And that was how I led. There were listen, every store was going to have Mickey Mouse. Every store was going to have the princesses. There were certain things that were non-negotiable. But, depending on the market, there was a lot of local execution.
Yep, and I
Had to be.
experienced that. Yeah, I experienced that in the various places that I would visit or live, and going to the
We
Disney
had we
store.
had we had Disney Store fans that would literally they were at our peak, we were in 14 countries. I knew of people who were going to visit us in each one of those countries and like buying a plush or buying a pin and
Right.
or a snow globe.
Mhm.
And, you know, I'd run into them all the time when I was president and I loved them. And they would tell me the good, bad, and the ugly of their experiences. But it's kind of the same thing with the Disney parks. Like, you know, there's parks in China, there's parks in Paris, there's parks in Japan, there's parks in Florida, and there's parks in California. And each one is Disney through and through, but they're also localized to that market.
Yeah, that's what makes them special from across the board. So
For
love,
sure.
love this conversation, Jim. Where can people find out more about you and contact?
Yeah. The easiest is my website, hijimfielding.com, just hijimfielding.com. LinkedIn, I'm Jim Fielding, really easy to find. And it is me, I say, in this land of AI. If you contact me, DM me, it's going to be me. It's not a bot that's answering you. And those are the two best places, LinkedIn and the website. And then the book, All Pride, No Ego. You can find that at Amazon, any of your local bookstores, Amazon, Alstora. It's also, I did record the audiobook. I get asked that a lot. So it's like me talking to you for almost 7 hours, if you can handle that. You can do it in small doses. But yeah, I read the book and it was a great experience.
Awesome. Definitely have all that information in the show
Yeah.
notes. And I listen to audiobooks at 2x speed, so it'd only be 3.5 hours. So,
I'd sound like Jiminy Cricket, but okay.
There are some voices you can do that, and there are some voices where
I don't know if mine is. I'm going to try that now. That's on my to-do list.
Yeah, there's some that for some reason I can't hear it, but my dog is going nuts for some reason. So
Afraid I might be setting off your dog. I'll have to try.
There you go. We'll give it a shot and let you know. So thanks again, Jim, for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Breakfast Leadership Show, part of the Breakfast Leadership Network. Visit breakfastleadership.com for tips on empowering your business and your life.